The Galactic Council thought they destroyed Earth and wiped out humanity. They were dead fucking wrong. We survived in the black. We rebuilt in secret. And now, we're back to make those alien bastards pay. 50,000 years ago, the Council annihilated our homeworld from orbit, reducing cities to molten craters and boiling the oceans away in clouds of searing steam. Billions died in the attack. Entire nations and cultures snuffed out in a heartbeat. And for what crime? The forbidden research into artificial intelligence and genetic engineering. The Council couldn't stand the idea of mankind expanding its potential, so they came to put us in our place. But not all humans died that fateful day. A few thousand survivors, led by Jason Foster, escaped the apocalypse aboard sleeper ships, carrying the flickering flame of humanity into the void. For 5 long decades, they drifted through the eternal night, until they reached salvation, a hidden human colony on the ragged edge of the galaxy. As Jason awoke from cryosleep and stepped onto the colony's soil, he could barely process the incredible sight before him. While he had slept, the colony had toiled, spending millennia rebuilding human civilization in secret. They had vowed to never again allow an alien boot to crush the human spirit. The best and brightest minds, now free from the Council's oppression, had developed technologies that seemed like magic. Warships armored with impenetrable energy shields, devastating antimatter cannons, legions of loyal AI combat drones, and genetically enhanced human soldiers. It was all hidden from the Council's prying eyes by advanced cloaking devices. A phantom fleet awaiting the right moment to materialize from the darkness and descend on the Council's seat of power, Beta's Prime. But on the eve of the attack, alarms rang out across the colony. Dread settled in Jason's gut like a ball of ice. A Council listening post had detected their energy signatures. The wretched Council leader Vox knew that humanity had survived, and now his strike force was racing toward the colony, determined to finish the genocide they had started 50,000 years ago. As the Council fleet approached with weapons primed, Jason stood on the bridge of the mighty human warship Retribution. He would lead the charge in a desperate battle against Vox's forces, fighting to defend the last bastion of humankind in the universe. It was time to launch the war of vengeance against the Council. Time to make them pay for the unfathomable crime of destroying Earth. Even if it took another 50,000 years, humanity would have its revenge. As the Betazoid strike force emerged from hyperspace near the hidden human colony, Jason stood on the bridge of the Retribution, his eyes locked on the tactical display. The enemy ships outnumbered the human fleet 3-1, their hulls filled with weaponry. "All hands to battle stations," Jason barked, his voice steady despite the tense situation. "Prepare to engage the enemy." The human ships moved into formation, their advanced AI systems linking together to form a cohesive battle net. Jason's genetically enhanced crew worked with precision and speed, their reflexes and cognitive abilities far surpassing those of their ancestors. The first volley of Betazoid fire slammed into the human fleet's energy shields, the impacts illuminating the void like a series of miniature suns. But the shields held firm, and the human ships responded with a devastating barrage of their own. Jason targeted the lead Betazoid dreadnought with the Retribution's antimatter cannons, the massive weapons glowing with an eerie blue light as they charged up. He waited for the perfect moment, then unleashed hell upon the enemy vessel. The dreadnought's shields flickered and died under the onslaught, and its hull buckled as the antimatter projectiles tore through its armored plating. Secondary explosions rippled across its surface as the Retribution's AI-guided missiles found their marks. But the Betazoids were far from defeated. A commando shuttle managed to penetrate the Retribution's shields and latch onto its hull. Jason watched on the security feeds as the airlock was breached, and a dozen heavily armed Betazoid soldiers stormed into the ship, led by a towering figure in black armor, Commander Zarn. Jason grabbed his plasma rifle and raced towards the breach, his augmented muscles propelling him forward at incredible speed. He arrived just as Zarn and his team were advancing down a narrow corridor. "Surrender, human," Zarn growled, his voice dripping with disdain. "Your pathetic species will soon be nothing more than a footnote in galactic history." Not today, Jason replied, raising his rifle and opening fire. The corridor erupted into a fierce firefight, plasma bolts and laser beams crisscrossing the confined space. Jason's enhanced reflexes allowed him to dodge incoming fire with almost preternatural speed, while his aim remained true. Zarn charged forward, his personal energy shield absorbing Jason's shots. He closed the distance in seconds, swinging his crackling energy blade at Jason's head. Jason ducked under the blow and launched himself at Zarn, tackling the larger alien to the ground. They grappled in close quarters, trading blows that would have shattered an unaugmented human's bones. Despite Zarn's size and strength, Jason's genetic enhancements gave him the edge. He managed to wrap his legs around Zarn's neck in a chokehold, squeezing with all his might. Zarn thrashed and struggled, but Jason held on, applying pressure until the Betazoid's movements grew sluggish and finally ceased. Jason released his hold and stood up, panting from the exertion. He looked down at Zarn's unconscious form, then activated his comm. "Security, I need a containment team at my location. We're taking this one prisoner." As the battle raged on outside the ship, Jason returned to the bridge, where he received an urgent message from Prometheus, the Retribution's AI. "Captain, I've managed to infiltrate the Betazoid command ship systems," Prometheus reported, its voice calm and measured. "I've uncovered vital intelligence about the Council's defenses and the location of their primary shipyard." Jason's eyes widened as he reviewed the data. This was the break they had been waiting for, a chance to strike at the heart of the Council's military machine. But there was no time to celebrate. The Betazoid fleet was still pressing the attack, and the human colony needed to evacuate before it was too late. "Prometheus, send the evacuation signal to the colony," Jason ordered. "We'll cover their escape." As the hidden wormhole gates activated and the colony ships began to flee, Jason and the Retribution moved to intercept the remaining Betazoid dreadnought. The two massive vessels exchanged blistering volleys of fire, their shields flaring with each impact. Realizing that the Retribution's shields were failing, Jason made a split-second decision. "All hands, abandon ship. I repeat, abandon ship." As the crew evacuated in shuttle pods, Jason remained on the bridge, steering the crippled Retribution on a collision course with the Betazoid dreadnought. At the last moment, he activated the ship's self-destruct sequence and jettisoned in an escape pod, watching as his once mighty vessel slammed into the enemy ship, the combined explosion consuming both in a blinding flash of light. Jason was picked up by a rescue ship, where he met with the other human leaders to plan their next move. Armed with the intelligence provided by Prometheus, they saw an opportunity to strike a decisive blow against the Council. The fleet would split into two groups, a larger decoy force to launch diversionary attacks on Betazoid outposts, drawing attention away from the primary target. Meanwhile, a smaller strike team led by Jason would infiltrate the Council's main shipyard and destroy it from within. As the ships prepared to depart, Jason took a moment to reflect on the challenges that lay ahead. The war against the Council would be long and bloody, with no guarantee of success. But he knew in his heart that humanity would never stop fighting, never stop seeking justice for the billions murdered in the Council's genocide. One way or another, the Council would pay for its crimes, and Jason would be there to ensure that they did. The intel from the Betazoid command ship proved invaluable. Jason and his strike team slipped into the massive shipyard complex in the Kappa Orionis system, their disguises holding up under scrutiny. They moved through the facility with purpose, planting explosive charges at key structural points. "How's it looking out there, Prometheus?" Jason sub-vocalized into his hidden comm unit. The AI's voice came through crystal clear. "Admiral Ivanov's decoy fleet is keeping the Betazoids occupied. I've infiltrated their communication networks and am feeding false tactical data. They suspect nothing." Jason nodded, satisfied. He led his team deeper into the shipyard, past towering starship frames and buzzing fabrication units. A heavily guarded blast door caught his attention. "That wasn't on the schematics," he muttered. "Let's check it out." They bypassed the security and entered a cavernous research lab. In the center stood a device unlike anything Jason had ever seen, a mass of pulsing energy contained within an intricate framework. "My God," breathed Sarah, the team's engineer. "The power readings from that thing are off the charts. It could vaporize entire star systems." Jason's teeth gritted. "We can't let the council keep this. Change of plans. We're taking it with us." As they worked to disconnect the prototype, alarms blared. A figure in ornate armor strode into the lab, flanked by guards. Well, well, if it isn't the infamous Jason Foster," the newcomer's voice dripped with contempt. "I've been looking forward to this day." Jason's blood ran cold as recognition dawned. "Vox." The Betazoid leader smirked. "Did you really think you could infiltrate our most secure facility undetected? I knew you'd come eventually. Your human predictability made it easy." "Why?" Jason demanded. "Why did you destroy Earth?" "Because you were a threat," Vox snarled. "Your kind's reckless pursuit of technology endangered the entire galaxy. I made the call 50,000 years ago, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat." Rage boiled within Jason. With a roar, he charged at Vox. The two leaders clashed in a furious melee, trading blows that would shatter ordinary beings. "Your council is the real threat," Jason spat between strikes. "You stifle progress, crush innovation. The galaxy stagnates under your boot." Vox parried a vicious blow. "Order must be maintained, regardless of the cost. Some races, like humanity, are too dangerous to be allowed free rein." Their battle raged across the lab, a blur of superhuman speed and strength. But Jason's enhancements gave him an edge. He finally broke through Vox's guard, slamming the Betazoid leader to the ground. Jason stood over his defeated foe, plasma pistol aimed at Vox's head. For a moment, he was tempted to pull the trigger, but he lowered the weapon. "No," Jason said. "Killing you won't bring back Earth. It won't end this cycle of violence. But maybe sparing you will show there's another way." He stepped back, allowing his team to secure Vox. "The charges are set. Let's move out." They escaped with the prototype weapon just as the shipyard erupted in a chain of devastating explosions. From the bridge of their stealth ship, Jason watched the destruction unfold. "Prometheus status update?" "The Betazoid fleet is in disarray," the AI reported. "With their primary shipyard destroyed, they're pulling back. Admiral Ivanov reports minimal casualties." Jason nodded, allowing himself a small smile. It was a major victory, but he knew the war was a long way to go. As they plotted a course back to friendly space, his mind raced with possibilities. "This is just the beginning," he told his team. "With this weapons plans and more allies joining our cause every day, we can finally bring down the Council. It's time to end their tyranny once and for all." The successful strike against the Council's shipyard lit a fire in Jason's eyes. He gathered the human leadership, their faces etched with grit as they pored over holographic maps of Beta Z Prime. "We hit them hard, but we can't let up now," Jason said, his voice firm. "We need to take the fight to their doorstep." Weeks of planning followed. Jason hand-picked a team of the most skilled operatives humanity had to offer. They drilled relentlessly, honing their skills for the high-stakes mission ahead. When the time came, they boarded captured Betazoid stealth ships. Jason's heart raced as they approached Beta Z Prime's orbital defenses. Massive energy cannons and swarms of automated drones patrolled the space around the planet. "Prometheus status report," Jason subvocalized. "Our stealth systems are holding," the AI replied. "Betazoid sensors show no sign of detecting us." They slipped past the defensive grid and entered the atmosphere. The team touched down in a secluded forest clearing, their ships cloaked from prying eyes. "Move out," Jason ordered. "Stay low and quiet." They trekked through dense underbrush towards the rendezvous point. The air was thick with tension as they neared the location where they were to meet the Betazoid resistance. Suddenly, the night erupted in chaos. Energy beams lanced through the darkness, cutting down two of Jason's team before they could react. "Ambush!" Jason shouted, diving for cover behind a fallen tree. Elite Betazoid hunter-killers swarmed from the shadows, their armor gleaming in the flashes of weapons fire. Jason's team fought back fiercely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. "Fall back!" Jason yelled, providing covering fire as his remaining operatives retreated. In the confusion, more of Jason's team fell or were captured. He watched helplessly as a Betazoid squad dragged away his unconscious second-in-command. Just when all seemed lost, a group of figures emerged from a hidden bunker. The Betazoid resistance had arrived, laying down suppressing fire that forced the hunter-killers to pull back. "This way!" a scarred Betazoid woman called out. "Quickly!" Jason and his few remaining team members followed the dissidents into their underground hideout. As the heavy blast doors sealed shut behind them, Jason leaned against a wall, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "What happened out there?" he demanded. The Betazoid woman's face was grim. "We were betrayed. Someone tipped off Vox's forces." Jason's fists clenched. Their carefully laid plans were in tatters, but there was no time to waste. They had to act now before Vox could bring his full might to bear against them. With the help of their Betazoid allies, Jason's team infiltrated the sprawling underground complex beneath the capital city. They moved through maintenance tunnels and service corridors, evading patrols as they closed in on the central command bunker. As they reached the heart of the facility, Jason's blood ran cold. There, in a vast chamber filled with pulsing energy conduits, stood Vox himself. The Betazoid leader was overseeing a team of scientists working on a massive device, the stolen superweapon. "Soon," Vox's voice carried across the chamber, "we'll have the power to bring order to the entire galaxy. No one will dare stand against the Council ever again." Jason signaled to his team. It was now or never. They burst into action, catching the Betazoid security forces off guard. The air filled with the sizzle of energy weapons and the shouts of combatants as a furious battle erupted. "Prometheus, get into their systems!" Jason shouted as he ducked behind a console, narrowly avoiding a barrage of fire. "Accessing now," the AI replied. "Their firewalls are formidable, but I'm making progress." Jason fought his way across the chamber, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to dance between energy beams. He closed in on Vox, who snarled and drew an ornate energy sword. The two leaders clashed in a whirlwind of strikes and parries. Vox's augmented strength was impressive, but Jason's relentless training gave him an edge. They traded blows that would have shattered normal beings, neither willing to give ground. Finally, Jason saw an opening. He feinted left, then struck with lightning speed. His fist connected with Vox's jaw, sending the Betazoid leader crashing to the ground. "It's over, Vox," Jason said, standing over his fallen foe. "Captain," Prometheus chimed in, "I've seized control of the weapon systems." Jason's finger hovered over the activation switch. With a single command, he could obliterate Beta Z Prime and cripple the Council's power structure. But as he looked at Vox's broken form, he realized the cost would be too high. Instead, Jason strode to a nearby communications terminal. He took a deep breath and began to broadcast. "People of Beta Z Prime," he said, his voice echoing across the planet. "For too long, you've been deceived by Vox and the Council." As Jason spoke, revealing the truth of the Council's tyranny and offering a chance for peace, chaos erupted throughout the city. The seeds of rebellion, long dormant, began to sprout. Alarms blared as Jason and his team made their way to the surface. The streets were filled with clashing factions, loyalists and dissidents locked in bitter struggle. They fought their way to their extraction point, but as they neared safety, a familiar figure appeared. Vox, bloodied but unbowed, raised a weapon. Before he could fire, another form tackled him to the ground. It was Zarn, Vox's former right-hand man. "Enough!" Zarn shouted, pinning Vox down. He looked up at Jason, conflict clear in his eyes. "This has to end. Take him. Take him to face justice for what he's done." Jason nodded, stunned by this unexpected turn of events. As his team secured Vox, Jason couldn't help but wonder what this new alliance might mean for the future of their struggle against the Council. Jason's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the command center. Vox stood before the massive control panel of the superweapon, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "You're too late, Foster," Vox sneered. The weapon is primed and ready. One push of a button and your precious coalition strongholds will be reduced to cosmic dust. Jason raised his plasma rifle, aiming it squarely at Vox's chest. Step away from the controls, now! Zarn flanked Jason, his own weapon trained on the Betazoid scientists cowering near the walls. It's over, Vox. Your regime ends here. Vox's laughter echoed through the chamber. You fools! Do you think I'd let you waltz in here without a contingency plan? He slammed his palm onto a glowing red panel. Alarms blared as blast doors slammed shut, sealing them inside. Prometheus, status! Jason barked into his comm. The AI's voice crackled with static. Encountering heavy resistance, Captain. The Betazoid systems are formidable. I'm locked in a cyber battle unlike anything I've faced before. Jason cursed under his breath. He glanced at Zarn, who nodded grimly. They'd have to do this the hard way. Vox's hands flew across the control panel, initiating the weapon's firing sequence. You want to defend the galaxy, Jason? Then watch as I bring it to heel. Jason and Zarn sprang into action. They leapt towards Vox, dodging energy blasts from the few remaining Betazoid guards. Jason's enhanced reflexes allowed him to weave through the barrage, closing the distance to Vox. The Betazoid leader spun, drawing an energy sword that crackled with power. He parried Jason's first strike, the clash of their weapons sending sparks flying. You don't understand, Jason, Vox snarled as they traded blows. The galaxy needs order, structure. Without it, chaos reigns. Jason ducked under a vicious swing, countering with a series of rapid strikes. And who decides that order? You? The Council? You're no better than the tyrants of old Earth. As Jason and Vox dueled, Zarn engaged the Betazoid guards. His movements were a blur as he disarmed and incapacitated them with ruthless efficiency. The battle raged across the command center. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks as stray energy blasts found their mark. The air filled with the acrid smell of ozone and burning circuitry. Prometheus, we're running out of time, Jason shouted as he parried another of Vox's attacks. Almost there, Captain, the AI responded. I've isolated the primary control node, but I need direct access to the main terminal. Jason's eyes darted to the central control panel. It was mere meters away, but Vox stood between him and their goal. Zarn, Jason called out, we need to get to that terminal. The former Betazoid commander nodded, understanding instantly. He charged towards Vox, forcing the tyrant to divide his attention. With Vox momentarily distracted, Jason made his move. He sprinted for the control panel, his fingers flying across the interface. Prometheus, I'm in. Do it now. The AI's presence surged through the system. Error messages flashed across screens as Prometheus engaged in digital combat with the Betazoid security protocols. Vox roared in fury, breaking away from Zarn to lunge at Jason. No, I won't let you destroy everything we've built. Jason turned, raising his arms to block the incoming attack. But before Vox could strike, Zarn tackled him from behind. The two Betazoids crashed to the floor, grappling fiercely. Jason, finish it, Zarn shouted, struggling to keep Vox pinned. Jason turned back to the console, working in tandem with Prometheus to dismantle the weapons systems. Warning klaxons blared as power levels fluctuated wildly. No, Vox screamed, his voice filled with desperation. You'll doom us all. Jason's fingers flew across the controls, executing the final command sequence. The superweapon's core began to pulse erratically, energy arcing between conduits. It's done, Jason said, his voice barely audible over the cacophony of alarms. Prometheus, what's our exit strategy? Working on it, Captain, the AI responded. I've located an emergency evacuation route, but we need to move now. The weapon's core is destabilizing rapidly. Jason helped Zarn to his feet, leaving Vox. Jason gripped the console, his fist clenched as he watched Prometheus engage in its digital duel. Lines of code flashed across the screens, a frenzied dance of attack and counterattack. Status, Prometheus? Jason barked, his eyes darting between the displays. The AI's voice crackled through the comm, strained and distorted. Betazoid defenses formidable, unable to breach targeting systems. Alarms blared throughout the station. Red warning lights bathed the control room in an eerie glow. Jason's team huddled behind makeshift barricades, trading fire with Betazoid guards who pressed their attack. "We need to buy Prometheus more time," Zarn shouted over the din of battle. He blind-fired his plasma rifle around a corner, forcing a group of advancing guards to take cover. Jason's mind raced. They were out of options, out of time. "Prometheus, reroute all auxiliary power to your core processors. Push yourself to the limit." For a moment, the screens went dark. The distant hum of the station's power grid faltered. Then, with a surge of energy, the displays blazed to life once more. Lines of code streamed by at impossible speeds as Prometheus accelerated its assault on the Betazoid defenses. "Breach detected," Prometheus announced, its voice stronger now. "Accessing targeting matrix." A schematic of the research station appeared on the main screen. A targeting reticle slowly centered on the structure. "What are you doing?" Jason demanded. "Only option. Turn weapon on itself," Prometheus replied. "Overriding safety protocols now." Jason's heart pounded. It was insane, but it might just work. He watched as the targeting reticle locked into place, finger hovering over the firing command. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from hidden panels in the walls. The screens went dark. Prometheus's voice cut out mid-sentence. "No!" Jason yelled, smacking his palm on the now-dead console. Vox's laughter echoed through the station's comm system. "Did you really think I wouldn't plan for this, Foster? My disruptor array was built for one purpose, to neutralize AIs like your precious Prometheus." Jason turned to Zarn, his face grim. "We do this the hard way, then." They charged into the corridor, dodging energy blasts and returning fire. The station became a war zone, filled with the sounds of battle and the acrid smell of ozone. As they fought their way toward the disruptor array's control room, a massive figure stepped into their path. Vox, encased in a hulking exosuit, his eyes gleaming with malice. "This ends now," Vox growled, his voice distorted by the suit's speakers. Jason and Zarn opened fire, but their shots ricocheted harmlessly off the exosuit's armor. Vox retaliated with a barrage of energy blasts that sent them diving for cover. The battle raged through the station's corridors. Jason and Zarn threw everything they had at Vox: grenades, plasma bolts, even hand-to-hand strikes when they managed to close the distance. But the exosuit shrugged off their attacks. Vox's augmented strength sent Jason crashing into a wall, his ribs cracking on impact. Zarn fared no better, a glancing blow from the suit's massive fist leaving him dazed and bleeding. As Vox loomed over them, energy building in his suit's weapon systems, Zarn locked eyes with Jason. In that moment, understanding passed between them. With a roar of defiance, Zarn hurled himself at Vox. The Betazoid's eyes widened in surprise as Zarn's fingers found a vulnerable seam in the exosuit's armor. With the last of his strength, Zarn tore into the circuitry. Electricity arced across the suit. Vox screamed in pain and fury, but the damage was done. Jason didn't hesitate. He raised his rifle and fired again and again. Plasma bolts tore through the weakened sections of Vox's armor. The Betazoid leader collapsed, his exosuit sparking and smoking. Forcing himself to his feet, ignoring the pain that racked his body, Jason staggered toward the disruptor control room. He left Vox where he fell, the once mighty leader now little more than a broken shell. The final push to the control room was a blur of gunfire and desperate hand-to-hand combat. When it was over, Jason stood amidst the bodies of Vox's elite guard, his remaining team securing the room. With trembling hands, Jason deactivated the disruptor array. Almost immediately, the comm system crackled to life. "Captain Foster," Prometheus' voice rang out clear and strong. "I've re-established control, awaiting your command." Jason took a deep breath, steeling himself for what came next. "Target the weapon on this station, Prometheus. It's time to end this." As the disruptor array powered down, Prometheus surged back to life. The AI's voice crackled through the station's comm systems, urgent and clear. "Captain Foster, I've regained control of the weapon systems, but we have a critical problem." Jason's fingers flew across the control panel. What is it, Prometheus? Vox implemented a failsafe. If the superweapon falls to Coalition forces, a remote detonation sequence will trigger the station's self-destruct mechanism. Jason's blood ran cold. He keyed the emergency broadcast channel. All Coalition forces, this is Captain Foster. Evacuate immediately. I repeat, evacuate now. Alarms blared throughout the station. The corridors filled with the sound of boots pounding on metal grates as personnel rushed to escape pods and shuttles. Prometheus, can you override the detonation sequence? Jason asked, his eyes darting between multiple screens. Affirmative, but it will take time. The failsafe protocol is heavily encrypted. Jason nodded grimly. Do it. I'll stay behind to make sure you finish the job. As the last of his team boarded their transport, Jason sealed the command center. He watched on the monitors as shuttle after shuttle launched into space, carrying his comrades to safety. Prometheus's voice filled the room, strained with effort. Engaging detonation protocol now. This will push my processing capabilities to their absolute limit. Lines of code streamed across every available screen. Jason could almost feel the heat radiating from the station's computers as Prometheus threw everything it had at the encryption. A proximity alert blared. Jason's head snapped up to see a figure stumbling down the corridor towards the command center. His heart sank as he recognized the battered but still functional exosuit. Vox had regained consciousness. Jason sprinted from the command center, sealing the door behind him. He intercepted Vox in a narrow passageway, their bodies colliding with a metallic clang. It's over, Vox, Jason growled, ducking under a wild swing from the Betazoid's augmented arm. Vox's laugh was a harsh, mechanical sound. Not yet, Foster. I'll see this station reduced to atoms before I let you have it. They grappled in the confined space, a furious exchange of blows. Despite his injuries, Vox's cybernetic enhancements gave him incredible strength. A glancing hit sent Jason crashing into a wall, stars exploding in his vision. But Jason's enhanced reflexes and years of training began to turn the tide. He dodged another of Vox's lumbering attacks, using the Betazoid's momentum to slam him into a control panel. Sparks flew as circuitry crumpled under the impact. As they fought, Prometheus's voice echoed through the station. Detonation protocol breached. Self-destruct mechanism disabled. Vox roared in fury. His hand shot to a concealed panel on his exosuit. Then we all die together. Time seemed to slow. Jason saw Vox's finger descend towards a glowing red button. He lunged forward, but he knew he'd be too late. The world exploded into light and noise. Jason felt himself hurled backward by an invisible force. His back slammed into something solid, an emergency airlock. The impact triggered its sensors, and the door slid shut just as the inferno reached it. Through the airlock's tiny window, Jason watched in horror as the station tore itself apart. The vacuum of space claimed section after section. Debris floated past, remnants of the once mighty weapon platform. Jason's suit integrity alarm blared. The airlock had taken damage in the explosion, and precious oxygen seeped into space. He tried his comm, but only static answered. As the stars wheeled slowly outside the window, Jason felt a creeping sense of dread. He was trapped, his oxygen dwindling, with no way to signal for help. Then, a miracle. A sleek escape pod drifted into view, its thrusters firing in controlled bursts as it maneuvered towards him. Prometheus's voice, weak but triumphant, crackled through Jason's helmet. Escape pod en route, Captain. Prepare for emergency docking procedure. With the last of the station's atmosphere, Prometheus guided the pod to Jason's position. Summoning his remaining strength, Jason forced open the airlock's manual release. He pushed off, drifting through the debris field towards his salvation. His gloved hands found purchase on the pod's hull. Spots danced in his vision as he fumbled with the docking mechanism. With a hiss of equalizing pressure, the pod's hatch opened. Jason pulled himself inside, every movement an immense effort. As his consciousness faded, he managed to activate the pod's distress beacon and set a course for the Coalition rendezvous point. The last thing he saw before blackness claimed him was the twinkling of distant stars through the pod's viewport, a vast expanse of possibility stretching out before him. Jason Foster stood before the Coalition Council, his posture rigid as he faced their expectant gazes. The chamber buzzed with hushed whispers, a palpable tension hanging in the air. "Captain Foster," Admiral Zhao began, her voice echoing through the room, "in light of your exemplary service, we offer you a position of leadership within the new Galactic Order. Your insights would be invaluable as we rebuild." Jason's eyes scanned the faces around him. He took a deep breath, his decision already made. "With respect, Admiral, I must decline. There's still work to be done. Vox may be gone, but his loyalists remain a threat. I request permission to form a specialized task force to hunt down these remnants." A murmur rippled through the council. Admiral Zhao leaned forward, her brow furrowed. "You understand the dangers of such a mission, Captain?" Jason nodded curtly. "I do, Admiral, but it's necessary to ensure lasting peace." The council deliberated in hushed tones. Finally, Admiral Zhao spoke. "Very well, Captain Foster. Your request is granted. Assemble your team and prepare for immediate deployment." Weeks later, Jason stood on the bridge of the stealth frigate Shadowhawk, studying a holographic map of the Dralkane Nebula. The swirling mass of gases and energy storms stretched before them, a treacherous maze of cosmic forces. "Prometheus, status report on our shielding," Jason called out. The AI's voice resonated through the bridge. "Experimental shielding holding at 98% efficiency, Captain. We remain undetected." Jason turned to his assembled team. Kira, a Betazoid defector, her dark eyes focused on the nebula display. Sergeant Reeves, a hardened veteran of a dozen campaigns, his cybernetic arm gleaming under the ship's lights. And Dr. Alara Chen, the Coalition's foremost expert on Betazoid technology. "We're about to enter hell itself," Jason said, his voice low and intense. "Grevax and his fanatics are hiding somewhere in this cosmic storm. Our job is to find them and shut them down before they can regroup." The Shadowhawk plunged into the nebula, its experimental shields crackling against the onslaught of ionic energy. For weeks, they navigated the treacherous currents, each day bringing them closer to their quarry. On the 23rd day, Prometheus's voice cut through the tense silence of the bridge. "Captain, I've detected an anomaly within a nearby asteroid field. Energy signatures consistent with a hidden base." Jason leaned over the tactical display, studying the data. "This is it. Grevax's stronghold. Prepare for insertion." The Shadowhawk glided silently through the asteroid field, its stealth systems masking their approach. As they neared their target, a massive structure came into view. A sprawling base built into the heart of a planetoid. "Commence breach operation," Jason ordered. The strike team moved with practiced precision. Shaped charges blew open an access hatch, and they poured into the base. The corridors erupted into chaos as alarms blared, and Grevax's forces scrambled to respond. Jason led the charge, his pulse rifle spitting bursts of energy. Kira moved like a ghost at his side, her telepathic abilities allowing her to anticipate enemy movements. Sergeant Reeves laid down suppressing fire, his cybernetic arm interfacing directly with his weapon. They fought their way deeper into the base, the air thick with ozone and the screams of the wounded. As they neared the central command center, Jason spotted a heavily fortified door. "Prometheus, we need that door open," he shouted into his comm. "Working on it, Captain," the AI responded. "Security protocols are complex. Give me 30 seconds. Those 30 seconds stretched into an eternity as Grevax's forces pressed their attack. Jason and his team held their position, the corridor around them scarred by weapons fire. With a hiss of hydraulics, the door slid open. Jason charged forward, only to stop dead in his tracks. Before him lay a sight that chilled him to his core. Rows upon rows of stasis pods lined the walls, each containing a swirling mass of silvery nanites. At the center of the room stood a towering figure, Grevax himself, his eyes blazing with fanatical fury. "You're too late, Foster," Grevax snarled, his hand hovering over a control panel. Vox's legacy will live on. The coalition will fall, stripped of its precious enhancements. Jason raised his weapon, but Grivax was faster. His hand slammed down on the panel, and alarms blared throughout the base. Self-destruct sequence initiated, an automated voice announced. Nanite dispersal in progress. Chaos erupted. Jason and his team fought desperately to reach the nanite dispersal chamber, but Grivax's forces had them pinned down. Energy bolts sizzled past, the air thick with smoke, and the acrid smell of burning circuitry. Prometheus, Jason shouted into his comm. We need extraction now. Understood, Captain, the AI responded. Bypassing security lockouts. Prepare for emergency transport. The world around them began to shimmer as the transporter beam took hold. The last thing Jason saw before they dematerialized was Grivax's triumphant sneer and the sight of silvery nanites flooding into the base's ventilation system. They rematerialized aboard the Shadowhawk, the ship already moving to put distance between them and the doomed base. Jason stumbled to the bridge, his mind racing. Report, he barked. Dr. Chen's fingers flew over her console. The nanites are dispersing into the nebula. If they reach the outer edges, they'll spread across half the galaxy within days. Jason's fists clenched at his sides. They had failed to stop Grivax, but the fight wasn't over. Not yet. Prometheus, he called out, his voice steel. I need you to analyze the nebula's ion storms. Find me a way to trigger a massive electromagnetic pulse. We're going to burn those nanites out of existence. As the AI began its calculations, Jason turned to face his team. The fate of humanity and its allies now rested on their shoulders, and the clock was ticking. Jason's fingers flew across the tactical console, initiating the deployment sequence for the stealth probes. He watched the holographic display as dozens of sleek black darts shot out from the Shadowhawk's launch tubes, disappearing into the swirling chaos of the Dralkane Nebula. Probes away, he announced, his voice taut with tension. Prometheus, status on particle placement. The AI's response came instantly. Charged particles dispersing as planned, Captain. Estimated time to critical mass, 15 minutes. Jason nodded, his eyes never leaving the display. Sergeant Reeves, keep those shield generators at maximum. The nebula's going to throw everything it's got at us. The veteran Marine grunted an affirmative, his cybernetic arm interfaced directly with the ship's systems. Outside, tendrils of energy lashed against the Shadowhawk's shields, sending ripples of blue light cascading across the hull. Captain, Kira called out, her voice tight. I'm sensing panic. Grivax knows what we're doing. As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the bridge. Dr. Chen's fingers danced across her console. Multiple hostiles incoming. They're trying to flank us. Jason's teeth gritted. Evasive maneuvers. Prometheus, plot us a course out of here. We need to be clear of the blast radius before detonation. The Shadowhawk banked hard, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy torpedoes. Through the view screen, Jason caught glimpses of enemy fighters weaving through the nebula's charged clouds, closing in fast. 5 minutes to critical mass, Prometheus announced. Jason's hands gripped the helm controls. Hold on, everyone, this is going to get rough. The ship dove and rolled, threading its way through the nebula's treacherous currents. Enemy fire sizzled past, some finding their mark and shaking the Shadowhawk violently. Suddenly, a massive shape loomed out of the chaos, Grivax's command ship, bearing down on them with savage intent. He's on a collision course, Kira shouted. Jason's mind raced. He couldn't let Grivax reach the probe launchers. In a split-second decision, he wrenched the controls, sending the Shadowhawk into a steep climb. Prometheus, I need targeting solutions now. The AI's voice was calm amidst the chaos. Targeting data uploaded to your console, Captain. Jason's fingers danced across the weapons interface. He fired a spread of precise shots, each one finding its mark on Grivax's engines and weapon systems. The enemy ship listed to one side, venting atmosphere and debris, but it kept coming, driven by its commander's fanatical drive. 30 seconds to critical mass, Prometheus intoned. Jason's heart pounded. Emergency wormhole jump, now! Space twisted around them. For a moment, the universe seemed to fold in on itself. Then, with a lurch that sent everyone stumbling, the Shadowhawk burst out of the nebula's edge. Behind them, the Dralkane Nebula erupted in a cataclysm of light and energy. The electromagnetic shockwave expanded at terrifying speed, engulfing everything in its path. As the light faded, Jason slumped in his chair, exhaustion etched on his face. He looked around at his team, seeing the same mix of relief and weariness in their eyes. Prometheus, he said softly. Damage report. The AI's voice filled the suddenly quiet bridge. Hull integrity at 78%. Minor systems damage throughout the ship. But we made it, Captain. The nanite threat has been neutralized. Jason nodded, allowing himself a small smile. But as he gazed out at the stars, he knew their work was far from finished. The galaxy still held dangers, and he would need to remain vigilant to protect the peace they had fought so hard to achieve. Jason Foster stood at the viewport of the Shadowhawk, his eyes fixed on the distant stars. The ship hummed with activity as the crew ran post-mission diagnostics, but his mind was elsewhere. The victory over Grevax's forces in the Dralkane Nebula should have felt triumphant, yet a nagging unease gnawed at him. Captain, Prometheus's voice cut through his thoughts. I've detected an anomaly in our recent intelligence feeds. Jason turned from the viewport. What kind of anomaly? A coded transmission, sir. Origin, unknown. Content, highly encrypted. But the signature, it bears hallmarks of Betazoid communication protocols. A chill ran down Jason's spine. He strode to the bridge's central console, bringing up the data Prometheus had flagged. His eyes scanned the complex patterns of symbols and numbers. Can you decrypt it? He asked, fingers flying over the controls. Negative, Captain. The encryption is beyond my current capabilities. However, I've isolated a recurring phrase within the code structure. It translates roughly to Omega Protocol. Jason's blood ran cold. He'd heard whispers of the Omega Protocol during his time fighting the Betazoid regime, an ancient failsafe, a weapon of last resort. He'd dismissed it as myth, but now... Alert the Coalition Council, Jason ordered, his voice tight. We need to mobilize immediately. Hours later, the Shadowhawk entered orbit around the irradiated husk of old Betazed. The planet's surface was a wasteland of cracked earth and ash-choked skies, the legacy of the war that had brought the Betazoid Empire to its knees. Jason led the strike team to the surface, their shuttlecraft weaving through fields of orbital debris. As they descended, proximity alarms blared. Incoming fire! Sergeant Reeves shouted from the cockpit. The shuttle banked hard, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy bolts. Through the view screen, Jason glimpsed sleek fighter craft emerging from concealed hangars in the planet's scarred surface. They were waiting for us, Kira said, her telepathic senses on high alert. Jason gritted his teeth. Prometheus, we need a clear landing zone. Analyzing terrain data, the AI responded. There's a break in their defensive line 2 kilometers east of your current position. I'm marking it now. The shuttle screamed across the desolate landscape, hugging the ground to avoid enemy fire. With a bone-jarring thud, they touched down in a crater riddled with twisted metal, the remnants of some long-ago battle. As the team disembarked, the air crackled with weapons fire. Jason ducked behind a jagged slab of debris, pulse rifle at the ready. He caught glimpses of their attackers, Betazoid loyalists in environment suits, their movements unnaturally fluid. Cybernetically enhanced, Dr. Chen called out, her scanner whirring, far beyond anything we've encountered before. Jason fired a burst, catching one of the loyalists in the chest. The attacker stumbled but didn't fall, nanites visibly repairing the damage. We need to find that underground complex, Jason shouted over the din of battle. Kira, can you sense anything? The Betazoid defector closed her eyes, reaching out with her mind. Her face contorted with effort. There's something, a void in the planet's psychic field, 1/2 kilometer north. Jason nodded. That's our target. Reeves, suppressing fire. Dr. Chen, Prep the breaching charges. We're going in. They fought their way across the blasted terrain, every step a struggle against withering enemy fire and treacherous footing. As they neared the coordinates Kira had sensed, the ground beneath them shuddered. A massive blast door ground open, revealing a yawning chasm that plunged deep into the planet's core. Betazoid defenders poured out, their weapons blazing. "Now or never!" Jason growled. He primed a cluster of grenades and hurled them into the emerging swarm of enemies. The explosions rocked the entrance, sending chunks of debris raining down. In the chaos that followed, Jason and his team charged forward. They plunged into the darkness of the underground complex, the sounds of battle echoing behind them as the blast doors slammed shut. The air grew thick and acrid as they descended. Emergency lighting cast an eerie glow over ancient Betazoid glyphs etched into the walls. Jason's skin crawled, every instinct screaming that they were heading into the heart of something terrible. "Captain!" Prometheus's voice crackled over the comm. "I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations ahead. Whatever they're powering up, it's big." Jason's teeth gritted. "Then we'd better hurry." They pushed deeper into the complex, fighting through automated defense systems and waves of cyborg warriors. Each chamber they cleared brought them closer to the pulsing heart of the facility. Finally, they reached a colossal vault door, its surface etched with warning symbols. As Jason approached, a holographic interface flickered to life. A face materialized, gaunt, eyes burning with fanatical intensity. Jason recognized him instantly from Coalition intelligence briefings. Azrael, Vox's chief scientist. "Captain Foster," Azrael's voice dripped with contempt. "How kind of you to join us for the rebirth of Betazoid supremacy." Jason raised his weapon. "It's over, Azrael. Stand down and we can end this peacefully." The scientist laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Peace? There will be no peace while your kind pollutes the galaxy. No, Captain. This is where we cleanse the universe of your taint." The vault door began to grind open. Beyond it, Jason caught a glimpse of a massive chamber, at its center a pillar of swirling energy that made his eyes water. "The Omega Protocol," Azrael announced with pride. "The ultimate safeguard, primed to unleash a gamma-ray burst that will sterilize every world your coalition holds dear." Jason's team fanned out, weapons trained on the opening door, but Azrael's image simply smiled. "You're too late to stop it, Foster. In minutes, the core will reach critical mass. Your pitiful galaxy will burn, and from its ashes, a new Betazoid empire will rise." The hologram vanished as the door fully opened. Jason and his team surged forward into the maw of the doomsday device that threatened to consume everything they had fought to protect.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.